Bonjour tout le monde, vous allez bien? Yeah, it's good to see you all. Bonjour tout le monde, vous allez bien? Oui, I can see that. It's a good day. Good day for Canada. It's a good day for Canadians. Delighted to be with you. Thank you all for being here. Few highlights. We have managed to lower, as you've seen, the deficit by $11 billion. We have kept our focus on affordability, because we know affordability is top of mind to Canadians. Vous avez vu nos mesures phares aussi sur le fonds souverain qu'on a lancé hier, le premier ministre et moi. Vous avez vu aussi ce qu'on va faire pour les travailleurs qualifiés, pour inspirer une nouvelle génération de jeunes à bâtir le pays avec nous. Finalement, we're going to build stronger communities. You know, we know that safety is top of mind to Canadians. So this was just to give you the highlights. If you have to move on, I just wanted to make sure you had the highlights before we get into all the details of what we have to announce today. But I think Canadians will see that we're a responsible fiscal manager. I think what matters to Canadians today is that we have managed to lower the deficit, $11 billion, at a time where you would see in the world this kind of a fog of uncertainty, which is clouding a lot of parts of the world. And Canada, despite all that, has been able to manage to lower the deficit and at the same time making sure we're there for Canadians. So, écoutez, bonjour tout le monde. Grand plaisir d'être avec vous. Merci pour ceux qui sont à la maison. Plaisir d'être avec vous aujourd'hui. C'est une journée importante pour les Canadiens et les Canadiennes, rendre compte d'où on est au niveau économique, au niveau fiscal. The last time I was here with you on November 4th, I spoke about Canada's plan to navigate a rapidly changing world. That context has only intensified, and you don't need to look very far. People know it. They've seen it on the shop floor. They've seen it in their community. They've seen the news around the world. The world is more uncertain than ever, I would say. But despite that, the Canadian economy has proven to be resilient. Canadians are resilient. Canadians are resourceful people. The speed, scope, and scale of global change is unprecedented, from geopolitical uncertainty to supply chain disruptions to breakthroughs in AI. All of these change at the same time recall a period that is shifting. As the Prime Minister said, this is not just like a transition, but we're definitely entering a new world order. This is why the Prime Minister called upon us to raise our level of ambition, to build at speed and scale not seen in a generation, to build Canada strong, to build sustainably, and to build responsibly. After all, to build a Canada for all. Today's Spring Economic Update 2026 builds directly on the ambitious plan and the generational investments that we laid in Budget 2025. What we're presenting is a bridge towards the direction that has been set in Budget 2025. It's long-term vision for Canada and the practical steps we need to take right now to keep that momentum going and support Canadians at a time of need with tangible affordability measures. We know that affordability is top of mind for Canadians, and we are happy to do our part. It also lays the foundation for something just as important, ensuring that Canada has the people and the skills needed to deliver on that great vision for Canada. That means a strong pipeline of trained workers and skilled tradespeople, which will turn these plans into projects. And you've seen this is one of the flagship measures we've announced today, inspiring this new generation of Canadians to build this country like we have never seen before. And I think this is really a step change in terms of how we're going to approach skilled workers, tradespeople, to make sure that they see this future and can contribute in it. Parce que l'objectif qu'on s'est donné est très clair. Nous mettons de l'avant un programme ambitieux qui vise à construire davantage de logements, à développer des infrastructures essentielles partout au pays, à renforcer les communautés dans toutes les régions du pays, afin de les rendre non seulement plus prospères, mais aussi plus sûrs et résilients. Parce qu'on a écouté les Canadiens d'un pays à l'autre et les gens nous ont parlé de bâtir des communautés plus sécuritaires, de bâtir des communautés plus résilientes à travers le pays. Nous rendons ainsi le Canada plus fort, plus autonome aussi, et certainement mieux préparé pour l'avenir. Et nous y parvenons en diversifiant nos échanges commerciaux, en réalisant de grands projets à l'échelle nationale, en créant de nouvelles opportunités pour les travailleurs et les jeunes, j'aurai la chance d'y revenir, et en aidant à alléger le coût de la vie au quotidien, parce qu'on sait que même si les données macroéconomiques sont positives, seraient même très positives pour le Canada, on sait que pour plusieurs familles, ce qui les inquiète, c'est la fin de la semaine, la fin du mois, comment on peut les aider dans cette période de transition. The one thing that comes out of the spring economic update is that we've been fiscally prudent. And that is what I think is in the mind of Canadians. They want, at a time where the world is undergoing unprecedented changes, that people at the helm would be fiscally prudent, that they would have a direction for this country, an ambitious vision, but at the same time, being good fiscal manager. And we are doing this while at the same time restoring something that I'm sure will be dear to Canadians, restoring fiscal discipline. Today, we're restoring fiscal discipline. These are serious times, and Canadians expect prudent fiscal management. We are very, very mindful that affordability is top of mind for Canadians. That's why we acted. We did not wait. We acted with thoughtfulness, and I would say in a timely manner to help people at a time where they need it most. And that's why we put in place, as you have seen, a number of concrete affordability measures. We've built the second fastest growing economy in the G7. And I want to put that in perspective. If you look at the numbers, Canada is growing almost twice as fast as what you see in Germany. Canada is growing twice as fast as what you've seen in Japan. Canada is growing 3 times as fast as what you see in Italy. Just to put that in context, it's not only that Canada is the second fastest growing economy, but Canada is growing at a pace not seen in a long time, and particularly when you compare it to our G7 colleagues. And at the same time that we've been able to achieve to be the second fastest growing economy, we have lowered our projected deficit for 2025, 2026 by more than 11 billion. This is at the core of being fiscally prudent. In fact, projected deficits are lower over the fiscal horizon. Deficit to GDP is decreasing, and Canada continues to have the lowest net debt to GDP ratio in the G7. Our strong fiscal position is the result of serious, thoughtful, and responsible decisions on behalf of all Canadians. That position is not only recognized here at home, but also internationally. I was just in Washington about 2-3 weeks ago, and I can tell you, Canada is on the lips of about everyone. The latest assessments from the International Monetary Fund underscore that Canada has the strongest fiscal position in the G7 economies, reflecting that we have the lowest net debt to GDP ratio, a AAA credit rating, and we share that only with Germany and the G7, and a disciplined approach to managing public finances. You will recall in Budget 2025, I told you that in the comments of the International Monetary Fund, they reminded the world that countries which have the fiscal capacity that invest in growth-enhancing infrastructure will see growth in GDP. And they were mentioning investment in infrastructure, investment in housing, investment in productivity and innovation, and that's exactly what we've done in Canada. And I think Canadians now can see the benefit. Canadians understand, they are seeing in this update that by spending less, we can invest more in the things that really matter to Canadians. Much remains to be done, obviously, because those macroeconomic figures are obviously interesting, but I would say my hearts and my thoughts go to the people in sector which have been affected by tariff impacted. If you're in the steel industry, the aluminum industry, softwood lumber in the auto sector, if you're in Windsor, in Hamilton, or Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean, you don't feel exactly the same. And therefore, that's why we are going to continue our fight to make sure that we can restore trade and that we will always bring our voice loud and clear to our partners south of the border. And like I said, much remains to be done. But we are building a Canada that is strong and fair, a Canada that is not just for some, most of the time, but for all at all times. Permettez-moi de passer aux éléments clés de notre mise à jour économique du printemps de 2026. Plusieurs d'entre vous ont déjà pris connaissance des 2 mesures phares qu'on a mis dans le budget. Le Fonds pour un Canada fort, le premier fonds souverain national du Canada, qui, parmi les commentaires que j'ai vus à l'international hier, disait que le Canada se distingue encore avec la croissance inclusive, un des seuls fonds souverains qui existe ou qui va exister où les citoyens, monsieur et madame tout le monde, peuvent participer dans la croissance collective qu'on va voir au pays. Et vous avez vu aussi la mesure phare qu'on a appelée une équipe Canada forte, des jeunes travailleurs qualifiés. On parle de 80 à 100 000 travailleurs qualifiés, de jeunes qu'on va amener dans des secteurs d'activité qui sont essentiels pour bâtir le Canada de demain. Le Fonds pour un Canada fort, que le premier ministre et moi avons annoncé hier, sera le tout premier fonds d'investissement souverain au Canada. Je l'ai souvent répété, c'est un fonds canadien pour les Canadiens. Il investira dans des projets des entreprises stratégiques d'ici afin de créer des emplois, stimuler l'innovation et de renforcer la compétitivité de l'économie canadienne. Les Canadiens pourront y participer. C'est ça, je pense, qui est intéressant. Il y a un aspect pour les Canadiens et Canadiennes de pouvoir participer directement en investissant dans le fonds, en prenant part à la croissance et en contribuant concrètement au pays que nous bâtissons ensemble. Conscient que vous avez d'autres questions. Comme je l'ai dit hier, on faisait l'annonce de ce fonds-là. Vous allez voir dans la mise à jour économique certains détails. Et il y aura une période de consultation, évidemment, où on consultera les experts pour s'assurer de 2 choses, que le fonds soit simple et accessible pour tous et tous ceux qui veulent investir au pays. Mais investir dans notre avenir, c'est aussi investir dans les personnes qui le bâtissent. Ça, c'est une autre mesure phare. C'est vraiment d'inspirer cette jeune génération de Canadiens de bâtir le Canada ensemble. Pourquoi on a créé la nouvelle initiative qu'on a appelée Équipe Canada forte, qui va permettre de recruter, de former, d'embaucher de 80 000 à 100 000 travailleurs qualifiés qui vont être nécessaires pour construire les logements, les infrastructures et les grands projets qui vont définir le Canada d'aujourd'hui et de demain. Elle aidera les travailleurs et les jeunes à acquérir les compétences, l'expérience et le soutien dont ils ont besoin pour réussir. Ce qu'on veut finalement, c'est de rendre un curriculum de plus en plus facile pour ceux qui voudraient se lancer dans des métiers de la construction. But beyond those 2 flagship measures, there is more. There is much, much more. We're making it easier for students to afford education by extending the increases of the Canada student grants while continuing to keep Canada student loans interest-free. And I've heard from many young Canadians. I've heard from younger students who came to me and say, "Sir, we still need that boost in order to finish our studies." And we want to be there for them. This is about removing barriers and ensuring young Canadians can access opportunity and contribute to our economy. We're also continuing to take action on affordability as cost pressures continue to be felt by Canadians across the country. That's why we have acted very quickly when we saw the increase in gas price, when we've seen the increase in food across the country, to provide immediate relief. We have cut fuel costs and making groceries and essentials more affordable, and we have strengthened the support for those who need it most, including by making it easier for people with long-lasting medical condition to access the disability tax credit. And I want to talk to these people in particular. I know you've been waiting for that for a long time. I know that the forms you have to complete, finding a family doctor to just complete the form so that you can actually get the disability tax credit that you're entitled to, we decided to act decisively to make it easier so you can get the benefit in which you are entitled. These pressures are also clearly reflected in housing. We know that housing remains one of the most significant affordability challenges that are facing Canadians today. And the Spring Economic Update built on the Build Canada Homes with new investment in factory-built housing, a measure to improve construction efficiency, and expanded support to address homelessness and encampments, because we see that this is still something that we see far too much in different cities across our country. It's not just in major urban centers, it's also in rural Canada. And we decided to do our part, to be there with municipalities, with provincial and territorial government. It also focuses on increasing housing supply by reducing red tape, supporting innovation, and working with provinces and territories to deliver meaningful outcomes. You've seen that recently with the housing supply measure we did. $1.7 billion that we send directly to provinces and territory. Using existing program, we wanted to have an immediate impact to reduce charges for people. And if you look in Ontario, the measures we have taken would reduce the cost by about $200,000 for the purchase of a new home. So this is meaningful. This is, I would say, federal and provincial government working together at their best. Les Canadiens connaissent aussi l'importance du sport, sa capacité de rassembler et unir les communautés. Et c'est pourquoi nous réalisons le plus important investissement dans notre système sportif depuis 20 ans pour donner aux jeunes un meilleur accès, mais aussi un meilleur soutien aux athlètes de haut niveau grâce à un financement additionnel de 755 millions de dollars. Et ça, je peux vous dire que c'est vraiment inspirer les jeunes d'une façon très canadienne. On sait que le sport peut unir, on sait que le sport rassemble, on sait que le sport a plusieurs bienfaits. Et je pense qu'en termes d'unité nationale, d'investir dans le sport, d'investir dans nos jeunes, d'investir dans nos athlètes, ça va certainement galvaniser des jeunes à travers le pays. Je suis content, c'est très en lien avec les valeurs canadiennes que nous avons. Et sur nos côtes, cet esprit d'engagement et d'excellence se reflète dans nos ports pour les petits bateaux. Ces ports sont plus que de simples infrastructures, ils sont au cœur des communautés côtières. Je parle à nos collègues en Atlantique, du côté du Pacifique aussi. C'est des infrastructures qui soutiennent près de 5 millions de Canadiens et sont essentielles à l'économie de nos collectivités de pêcheurs d'un océan à l'autre. C'est pourquoi nous investissons près d'1 milliard de dollars. 1 milliard de dollars pour préparer et renforcer des centaines de ports essentiels partout au pays. Et ça s'inscrit dans cette volonté-là de dire que le Canada devra exporter plus. Vous avez certainement vu dans l'énoncé économique, il y a différents graphiques, dont un qui montre vraiment comment les exportations outre-mer ont progressé au cours des derniers mois, au cours de cette période-là fiscale. On voit déjà que les gens prennent avantage du fait que le Canada est le seul pays du G7 à avoir un accord de libre-échange avec tous les pays du G7, ce qui nous donne un accès préférentiel à 1,5 milliard de consommateurs. These are not isolated measures. We made these investments with a purpose, and let me make it real for you. In Budget 2025, we made generational investments in infrastructure to build stronger community, delivering tangible benefits across our country. Now, the Team Canada Strong will empower workers from the same communities to help build the local infrastructure that the government is investing in. Whether that means homes, sport facilities, or transit system, these projects will be built by workers in our communities for our communities. In conclusion, and I can see some smile in the room, in conclusion, this update reflects both Canada's progress and purpose. Canada is moving forward with ambition and focus, charting a path forward to the fog of uncertainty. We're stepping up for businesses, for our farmers and fishers, for our workers, and for our communities. Nous sommes déterminés à faire avancer les projets structurants pour le pays, tout en donnant aux Canadiens le soutien dont ils ont besoin pour réussir. Nous livrons des résultats concrets aujourd'hui, tout en bâtissant un pont pour garantir la prospérité à long terme. We're building Canada strong for all, because when we do, there's no limit to what we can achieve together. So let's seize the moment, let's be ambitious, let's build Canada strong together. Merci, and it's going to be a real pleasure to take your question. Merci tout le monde.
Minister, we'll take questions, one question, one follow-up for 25 minutes. We'll start with Najud and make our way to Yasmin afterwards. Merci.
Hi, Minister. Najud Amelis, Bloomberg News.
Pleasure to meet you. To see you, I would say.
I was going to say, not the first time.
True, not the first time.
On the Sovereign Wealth Fund,
Yeah.
There's not much details in the economic update, but it does say that projects that are referred to the Major Projects Office, as well as ones that receive other federal support, would be invested in through the fund. So I'm just wondering if you can clarify what you mean by other federal support.
Well, that's a very good question. And I was saying in my remarks, you may have seen international media that said this is a truly Canadian fund because it's the inclusiveness portion of it has been highlighted by a number of international media because people look at the Nordic countries. I mean, it's been done before. But if you look at some of the headlines that I've seen internationally, they were saying this is truly Canadian because people will be able to invest. So what we say is that obviously there are projects of national interest. They're the Major Project Office. There's going to be investment in Canadian companies to grow. The purpose behind it, that I can tell you, the Prime Minister and I exchanged quite a long time on this. There are examples in Canada, but also internationally, and we kind of look at the best practices. So yes, there are going to be projects that you can see in the major project office, but there'll be other projects where, this is going to be independent, arm's length from the government, because we know that governance is essential when you structure that. We know that very well. And therefore, but what we say in the framework that you're going to see, this is going to be allowing Canadians to benefit from the growth we're going to see in the country. But it's not exclusively those that are within the major project office.
No, I understand. So I'm just wondering if you can clarify that, again, it says projects referred to the major projects office and projects that receive other federal support. So what exactly does that mean?
Well, you would see, I'll give you an example. You could have a project which would have received the Indigenous Loan Guarantee, for example, to the Indigenous Loan Guarantee Corporation, where the federal government is already a partner to build these projects. So the fund could well decide to take an equity interest to co-invest, The point what you need to see is that this is, it's going to be arm's length, it's going to be on commercial terms, it's going to co-invest with other funds, with private investors, and that is the essence of it, is really to give a vehicle so that Canadians can benefit from the collective wealth that we're going to be creating through that. Like I said, on commercial terms, arm's length from the government. And I appreciate there are a few questions outstanding. We announced it yesterday. You'll see more detail today. And then we'll consult with the best expert in the world, because we're looking at best practices. And the fact that we have allowed citizens to be able to invest in the fund, that's something we want to structure, that it's accessible and easy for people who want to invest, that they can co-invest in these major projects.
Yes.
Merci.
Yasmine Mehdi avec
Oui,
Radio-Canada.
excusez-moi.
Le gouvernement précédent dont vous faisiez partie nous a habitués à des mises à jour économiques peut-être plus substantielles avec beaucoup de nouvelles annonces. C'est moins le cas aujourd'hui. Pourquoi?
Discipline. Je pense que ça prend de la discipline. C'est un moment sérieux. Vous savez, quand je parlais du nuage d'incertitude qui plane sur l'économie mondiale, vous allez voir dans l'un des premiers chapitres, je pense que c'est dans le premier chapitre, un graphique qui parle de ce qu'on a appelé l'index de l'incertitude mondiale. Et si vous regardez aujourd'hui, je pense que dans l'histoire récente, on est au plus haut niveau qu'on a vu. Les gens le constatent à la maison, ils le constatent dans les entreprises. On l'a vu, cette incertitude-là, ça vient des tarifs, mais ça vient aussi de la situation géopolitique mondiale, géoéconomique. Alors, moi, je pense que dans un moment comme celui-là, on fait preuve de prudence, on est des bons gestionnaires. Comme j'ai dit, on est arrivé avec un déficit qui est moins élevé de 11 milliards. Et vous avez vu que le déficit diminue sur toute la période fiscale. Alors, je pense que le message qu'on envoie, c'est qu'on est des bons gestionnaires, mais en même temps, on est des gestionnaires prudents dans une période qui demande beaucoup de sérieux, parce que revenant des discussions à l'international avec mes partenaires du G7, vous comprendrez qu'il y a beaucoup de choses qui se passent dans le monde, le conflit au Moyen-Orient, l'incertitude face aux tarifs. Ça demande énormément de prudence, mais en même temps qu'on a été prudent, on était là pour les Canadiens parce qu'on est très conscient que l'abordabilité, ça demeure l'enjeu. Si vous regardez dans les nouveaux revenus qu'on a eus, 7 milliards, 2/3 de ces revenus-là sont allés pour aider les gens durant cette période-là, des mesures d'abordabilité. Si vous regardez les nouvelles mesures qu'on a mises dans l'énoncé économique du printemps, c'est près de 50 des nouvelles mesures qui vont aussi pour aider les gens en matière d'abordabilité. Donc, d'un côté, on a une économie solide, malgré toute l'incertitude. C'est ça que tous les indicateurs indiquent. Tous les indicateurs sont au vert. De l'autre côté, vous avez des questions d'abordabilité où on a pris des mesures ciblées pour aider les gens dans un moment qu'ils ont besoin. En même temps, on bâtit pour le futur avec des grands projets et on s'occupe des enjeux qui touchent des gens comme la sécurité, comme par exemple le sport, pour bâtir des communautés résilientes partout. C'est vraiment ça la vision qu'on a mis de l'avant. On new budget measures, okay, so what I was saying is that if you look at the budget, so I think that what you can see is that all the indicators are green. You know, when you look at the macroeconomic picture of the country, we are in a strong fiscal position. It's not just me who's saying it, but international agencies. Actually, you know, I like the example when you look at the growth of Canada compared to Germany, almost twice as much as Germany. That obviously should give a sense of perspective to people who are watching. What I was saying is that if you look at the same time that we have been a prudent fiscal manager, we restore discipline, we understand that affordability is top of mind. That is really, Canadians understand, okay, there's a lot of uncertainty in the world, but what about me? What about me now? And I was saying that if you look at the $7 billion, which is the additional revenues that have been generated, 2/3 of that is going towards affordability measures. And if you look at the new measures that we have put in the fiscal update 2026, it's about 50% of these measures which go toward affordability. So my point was like, we know we have a strong economy, but we need to help people where they are now, which is affordability. We're building the country for long-term growth, and at the same time, we need to build stronger communities, and that's why you have these two flagship measures, the sovereign fund on one end, and making sure that we have the apprentice, the Red Seal people, the tradespeople needed to build the country we all aspire to. So there's something about, building a Canada for all in that.
Je vais prendre ma question de suivi. Oui, par rapport aux 2 milliards de dollars qui seront consacrés à la formation professionnelle, est-ce que vous auriez été prêt à donner cet argent aux provinces et à les laisser administrer un programme comme ça? Pourquoi c'est le fédéral qui a besoin de faire ça?
Je pense que vous avez vu regardez ce qu'on a fait, par exemple, dans le domaine du logement, 1,7 milliard. On fait toujours ça en partenariat. Regardez ce qu'on a fait aussi avec le fonds de pension canadien, où il y a l'unanimité des provinces pour baisser, vous avez peut-être vu la contribution. On parle d'environ 133 $ que les travailleurs vont épargner sur ceux qui sont en moyenne un salaire de 70 000 $. On fait ça en partenariat avec les provinces. Évidemment, ce qu'on a réalisé, puis ce n'est pas uniquement au niveau fédéral, mais je pense que les gens sont conscients qu'on s'est donné des objectifs ambitieux. On dit on va construire une vitesse à une ampleur qu'on n'a pas vue, mais évidemment, ça prend les gens pour le faire. Et d'avoir un programme comme celui-là, ça va catalyser les énergies qu'on a besoin à travers le pays avec des incitatifs importants. On parle de 5 000 $ lorsque vous finissez le cursus. On parle d'aider les gens durant cette période-là de formation. On va travailler avec les provinces, les territoires pour le faire, mais je peux vous dire, dans mes conversations que j'ai avec mes collègues, ils sont tous conscients que si on veut bâtir les ports, les infrastructures qu'on a besoin, les grands projets, on a besoin évidemment de ces travailleurs-là qualifiés. Donc, moi, je vois ça de bon augure avec les provinces.
Pas de l'ingérence?
Je pense que c'est plutôt un partenariat. Vous savez, quand on parle de bâtir puis d'aider nos jeunes, dans cet esprit-là, je pense qu'on est plus dans le partenariat qu'autre chose.
Next question, Laura.
Je vais essayer d'aller plus vite. On pourra rallonger un peu. Je veux pas. Moi, ça me fait plaisir d'être ici. Il faut juste que je sois en chambre éventuellement pour faire l'énoncé. Mais sinon, ça me fait plaisir. Madame?
Hi, Minister. Laura Osman with The Logic. The statement identifies one of the weaknesses with the government's building agenda, which is that we have a real shortage of skilled trades. You have a $6 billion plan to address that, but even if it is successful, you're still looking at a gap there once you factor in major projects and doubling the pace of home building. So what does that mean for the government's building agenda?
You mean in terms of the tradespeople to build it? Well, I think what we realized is that we needed to do more. There's no doubt about that. We've seen, there's a number of programs existing, a number of government institutions that have been having different programs to help people in the trades. But we've not seen a comprehensive approach, working with unions, working with colleges, working with employers to really make sense. It's really when you're a young person, you look at that and you say, how many people know all these programs and all these agencies? I would probably put it to you, not that many. So we said we need to have like a smoother process so that young people can see themselves in trade, can see themselves in building Canada. And that spirit of being part of something bigger is what we want to instill. And we know that, for example, the Red Seal certification is one which is sought after, and it's going to be needed to build our nation.
You spoke about being ambitious with this program and trying to meet the need, but even if you reach the levels of new skilled tradespeople that you're talking about in the budget, there's still a potential shortfall there. So what does that mean for actually getting these major projects and housing built?
Well, I think we're doubling down. I mean, this is not just an incremental measure. This is a step change. I mean, if you look in the history of the recent history of our country, I don't think we've approached trades training in such a comprehensive way. This is like, it's one of the two flagship measures that we work on to really do a step change in how we train young people to be part of building Canada, inspire them. And all that comes together. It's like the infrastructure we're going to build is going to help, we'll provide opportunities for tradespeople. They're going to build in their community. In the community, you'll have also training facilities. It built on sport. It increase, obviously, the growth in our country. All that comes to place when you look at that. You build infrastructure, you have the people to build it. Whilst you're building, you build stronger communities. With stronger communities, you'll have sport facilities. People will be able to see themselves in that growth. It's not just like these big major projects, it's how you build stronger communities, but it starts with people, obviously. Merci.
David Aiken, Global
Yes.
News. Thank you, Minister. Had the good fortune to review this statement sitting beside the former PBO, Kevin Page.
Oh, good.
And he identified that the fiscal uplift, I
Yeah.
think that's your phrase, is worth about $60 billion over the forecast horizon, of which you spend most of it. So when you stand there and talk about fiscal discipline, I wondered if you could explain to us
Oh, yes,
what you
I'm
mean
so
by
happy.
that
I wish I would
and
have
give some
sit
examples
next
of
to
fiscal
Kevin.
discipline.
I would have, growth does not happen by accident. Growth happens because you have strong policy. I would refer you to the IMF when they said countries which invest in housing, infrastructure, productivity, innovation. So this is your top line. This is the revenue part. The other place where I think you need to give us credit is on the expense side. You know, we've identified 60 billion of reduced expenses because if you look over the last decade, if you look at direct program expenses, you were around 8% in terms of growth. We're going back to something closer to 2%. So on one end, yes, you have GDP growth because, you know, the Canadian economy is resilient. Canadians are resilient. This is not an oil story, by the way. So just we're clear, because 28th of February was when the conflict started, and the private sector economists closed their forecast on the 11th of March, if I recall. So this is not an old story. It's just the growth of the Canadian. I think what you're seeing is that the Canadian economy is stronger, more resilient than a lot of people had thought because of our integration with the U.S. economy, because of the tariff. Perhaps a number of people would have expected a different outcome. But what we see is that the Canadian economy is stronger. But that's also with respect to our export. I would just want to mention, if you look at, there's one chart that David, you will see where you see the growth, for example, in non-U.S. export, which is growing very much so that people start taking advantage of our trade. You've seen lower public debt charges. So there's a number of factors that has come to that. And I would say, on one end, if you look at the international revenue, the $7 billion that you see, 2/3 of that has been to support people. But over the framework, we're able to reduce the deficit because I think we've been able to make the tough decisions that are needed. And with respect to the forecast, I would just say, if you look at the price of oil, obviously there's a lot going on in the world today, to say the least. There's a lot of uncertainty with respect to many things you're seeing. But I think the fundamentals of Canada are strong. I mean, if it was just, you know, like I said, growth does not happen by luck because we're growing twice as much as Germany. So if it was just to stand still and say, let's hope for the best, we would not be growing twice as much as Germany. We would not be growing twice as much as what you see in Japan. We would not be growing 3 times more than Italy. Those are G7 colleagues and partners. So my point is that the measure we have taken to build this country, to invest in growth-enhancing assets, and I refer you to the IMF Director General's speech when she said, those who invest in these things will see higher growth. That's what you're seeing in Canada. And then at the same time, lower expenses. I think that's the picture you need to see in order to see where Canada is going. And it's true, we're in a very strong position. If you look at the G7, I mean, this is the place you would want to be. They're telling me to be shorter.
The industry committee
It's passion, by the way.
Yes,
so
I get it.
just,
Thank you for that passion. The industry committee right now is hearing some pretty compelling testimony from mold makers, steel
Yes.
companies that literally are telling the committee they're going to shut as of June the 1st because of these new tariffs. And I was looking through today's statement to see if you were going to address these new tariffs. Urgent relief is needed for many companies. South of Montreal, we just heard of a woodshop manufacturer that's closing down because of these, and it's going to happen more throughout Southern Ontario.
They wrote to me yesterday. No, listen, that's why I say, you know, so on the macro level, national level, you see these results. Where are you, David? I lost you. You're there. You see that the results are good. You know, you compare it to others. But like I said, if you're in a sector which is affected by the tariff or in a region, obviously your feeling is very different. And I've seen South Shore yesterday. The thing I would say to you, David, is that we've always been there to support workers. We have put to the Strategic Response Fund unprecedented amount of money to support people. We know those are tough times. We know if you're in the small and business size businesses, these tariffs are really impactful. That's why we've taken a number of measures to make Canada the most competitive tax jurisdiction for new investments, and at the same time to be there to support workers in times of need, but very conscious of the impact of the tariff. That's why I say on one end, you could see the indicator on the green with respect to the Canadian economy, but very mindful of affordability and people which are impacted in tariff-affected sectors, for sure. Sir.
Monsieur Champagne,
Bonjour, bonjour.
Michel Sabala, Presse canadienne. Combien d'argent ira pour chacune des 3 prochaines années à votre nouveau fonds souverain? Parce que tant le 25 milliards que sa ventilation sur les 3 prochaines années ne sont nulle part dans le document et j'aimerais savoir pourquoi.
Bien, on va mettre, comme on a dit, 25 milliards de fonds initiaux parce que c'est vraiment pour capitaliser le fonds de façon initiale. Ensuite de ça, il y aura d'autres actifs qu'on devra considérer à mettre dans ce fonds-là. Et on aura plus, j'allais dire, de détails à vous fournir. Comme on a dit, hier, on faisait l'annonce initiale. Aujourd'hui, il y a plus de détails dans la mise à jour économique. Et ensuite de ça, bien, on fournira l'ensemble des détails. Il y a eu des questions sur la partie comment les gens pourraient investir, comment on voit ce fonds-là grandir au cours des années. Mais c'est clair que au cours des années, on va voir...
Le détail ne devrait-il pas être dans ce document-ci?
Bien, écoutez, on a été très clair que c'est 25 milliards qu'on met, qui vient du fonds consolidé. Et derrière ça, vous comprenez, c'est sûr que le Canada, avec une cote de crédit AAA, on est un des pays qui emprunte avec les meilleurs taux sur les marchés. Donc, on est capable d'emprunter, mais en même temps de faire fructifier. C'est un peu ça l'idée. Et ensuite de ça, bien, dans le fond, on va contribuer des actifs au cours des années pour prendre la pleine valeur des actifs fédéraux qu'on pourrait décider de contribuer dans ce fonds-là. Mais il fallait quand même avoir un capital de départ pour pouvoir investir avec d'autres investisseurs dans des projets d'intérêt national.
J'aimerais revenir sur la question de ma collègue Yasmine relative aux travailleurs. Accepteriez-vous de transférer aux provinces qui vous accuseraient d'ingérence dans leur champ de compétences les fonds?
Bien, il n'y en a pas qui m'accusent aujourd'hui. On a fait l'annonce, puis à date, ce que j'ai vu sur les messages que je reçois, c'est assez positif. Les gens comprennent. Hein? Oui, bien, bon, écoutez, c'est vrai que vous avez raison qu'ils ne savent pas tous les détails encore. Mais ce que je peux vous dire, c'est que clairement, les collègues voient l'importance de faire une mesure phare. Je vous dirais qu'on n'est pas juste... Tu sais, vous savez, souvent, quand on parle de travailler avec les provinces, il y a des choses qu'on peut faire de façon... on peut ajouter à ce qui existe, mais là, on fait une réforme complète. Moi, j'ai confiance de pouvoir travailler avec mes collègues, que ce soit au Québec, que ce soit ailleurs, parce que autant au Québec, c'est ça la question, vous savez, juste pour vous rassurer, la question des travailleurs qualifiés pour bâtir, c'est un enjeu dont on parle déjà. Ce qu'on arrive aujourd'hui, c'est avec une mesure phare, mais c'est un enjeu que nos collègues dans les provinces comprennent, évidemment. Yes, sir.
Hello, Darius Sneakus with the National Observer.
It's good to see you.
Well, it's good to see you again. It's been some time. I want to take a question, please, on the carbon capture and storage ITC.
Yes.
It's been expanded to formally include enhanced oil and gas recovery projects
Yes.
now. Two-part question in a sense. I mean, one, is this a tacit admission that CCS is uneconomic? You're needing to attach a monetizable element to this? And secondly, how do you square this with our emissions reduction pledges to legally binding to the Paris Agreement? This will result in more production, more emissions, and indeed work against our climate action.
Well, listen, we are very committed to our target. We think that this measure will help to store more carbon. We've seen engaging with colleagues, particularly in Alberta and others, that we need to do more in order to make sure that we would be able to store more carbon. But at the same time, if you look at the state of the world today, you realize that Canada is increasingly that stable, predictable partner of choice when it comes to energy security. And Canada is one of the rare countries in the world which can produce sustainably and responsibly. So that's why the measures you've seen on the ITC and other measures we have put in the spring economic statement support that vision for Canada to play a larger role with our partners and allies around the world.
Well, with respect, it won't result in more carbon being stored. The carbon will simply be used to pressurize oil and gas reservoirs for more production.
Listen, I know where you're going with that. I think experts will look at that measure. You know, different experts can have a technical view on that. What I'm saying is that we thought this is a measure which is much needed at the time where the world is looking for additional energy security, and Canada can be that partner of choice to. I was in Australia recently. You talk to our colleagues in Japan, our colleagues in Europe. I mean, everyone is hoping and asking Canada to be that partner of choice at a time where the geopolitics of the world are making energy security very challenging.
Right, thank you. Well, in follow-up then, we see you're trailing a nuclear energy strategy in the update today. We are among very few countries on the planet that does not have a renewable energy strategy. We've seen deployment fall year on year, wind and solar both. We've not deployed batteries at a rate of anything like Europe, for instance. Where is the renewable energy strategy? When can we expect something formal?
Well, thank you for that question. I think, Canada and Quebec in particular is the poster child of renewable energy. I mean, everyone refers to Quebec. I mean, hydroelectricity in the world. People would look at Quebec as one of the jurisdictions, Manitoba another jurisdiction, in BC. We not only we see ourselves in conventional energy or in nuclear, but I think in terms of renewable energy, that's why if you look at the stacking of investment tax credits, we're probably the country in the G7, pretty sure, even if I expand, to have the most comprehensive suite of incentives in order to support renewable energy production.
And yet Hydro-Quebec is building 11 gigawatts of wind because it cannot count on the base load
We have to
from
go
its
on.
hydro
There it is.
reservoir.
Thank you.
Thank
I'm
you.
happy to take that with you
Okay.
after. I'm just mindful of
These are-
colleagues because people were looking at me to say, to take as much question as
Yes,
possible, and here I
Thank you for
am.
the answers provided. Thank you.
Appreciate.
Hello, Minister.
How you doing?
Good, thank you. Anya Cuttadeglia, Canadian Press.
Yeah.
To follow up on a question from my colleague Michelle earlier, Canada is borrowing $25 billion to fund the initial capitalization of the Sovereign Wealth Fund. So can you explain why there's no line item showing where that fund is adding to Canada's deficit? And how is it being accounted for in your fiscal plan?
Well, you know, when you contribute 25 billion in support, and I would refer you to the tables, you'll see that this is on a cash basis. So obviously the impact is different than if you're on an accrual basis when you contribute that, because you'll have an asset on the other side to compensate for that. So this is initial capital to get the fund started, and there'll be additional assets that will be contributed over time. But obviously, this is cash, but you have an asset on the other side of the ledger. So it's not the same thing that an accrual you need to make with respect to a contribution. So, but we're happy to provide you the technical assessment where you can see that in the statement. Ben, la différence, écoutez, là, on rentre vraiment dans le... Je pense que les gens à la maison... là, on rentre vraiment entre la comptabilité de caisse et la comptabilité dans nos livres, c'est-à-dire que les livres sont présentés en fonction des normes comptables. Quand on contribue 25 milliards de caisses, évidemment, on a un actif de l'autre côté. Donc, ça n'a pas un impact comme si on faisait la comptabilité lorsqu'on fait, par exemple, une contribution, une subvention à une entreprise, parce que de l'autre côté, vous avez un actif. C'est-à-dire que vous avez l'argent dans le compte, vous allez avoir un actif pour compenser ça. Donc, pour ces sociétés, mais c'est la même chose avec la Banque d'infrastructure, avec les autres institutions comme la BDC, EDC. Quand vous contribuez des montants d'argent comme ceux-là, ils sont comptabilisés au niveau de ce qu'on appelle la comptabilité de caisse.
We'll take one last question.
And for my follow-up, why are you this plan to give Canada Post the power to search mail without a warrant? Why did you include that in the document today?
Well, I would have to get back to you to go specifically at that and provide you the additional details with respect to that. I'm quite
Why
happy to.
include it in an economic update?
Well, there's all, when you do the economic update, there's a number of things you want to address. This is about being transparent. This is about informing Canadians about the measures that we put forward. But with respect to that, I'm quite happy to provide you a more detailed answer on that.
We're going to end there. Merci tout le monde.
No?
Il y a pas de temps,
Abigail
monsieur.
Beeman, CTV News.
Oh, yeah. I have to,
Abigail, we've got to run.
okay. Well, I'm told I have to go. I have to do this thing in the. You go quickly, and I'll try to be quick.
Okay, well, your budget document projected that your government was going to have $35.9 billion in revenue over the next 5 years, but today you're announcing $37.5 billion in net new spending.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering why you didn't choose to use that revenue to pay down the deficit further.
Well, like I said, Well, two things I would say. In the additional revenue, we decided the 7 billion of additional revenue. I'm going to do two things. So the 7 billion, which is the additional revenue, 2/3 of that is going to support affordability. With respect to the 37 billion of new measures, we have decided at a time like that Canadians needed support with respect to affordability. So affordability is 50% of it, and then there's a ventilation with respect to the rest. But the key message I would say for Canadians is that we have the new measures we've presented are by far to support Canadians at a time of need.
But
So
with that
Sima Feng,
affordability.
Abigail, we gotta
everyone else
run.
got to follow
I'll
up.
be coming back after.
But everyone else
Just
had a
try.
follow-up. With,
You go.
You talk about affordability as being so important, but
Yeah.
aside from the gas and grocery announcements that you already made, what would you say to Canadians who look at today's
Well, I
document
would say,
and
just look
that-
at the additional measures we've taken. I mean, this is just two new measures we've announced recently, but if you look at the suite of measures, you would see that Canada has probably taken one of the most comprehensive suite of measures in the G7 with respect to affordability. It's the National School Food Program, it's the early learning and childcare, it's the tax credit that we gave. You know, the first thing we did under the Carney government was to give a tax break to Canadian, and we detailed that in a page. You have about, I don't know, more than 10 measures. What I refer to is the most recent measures we've taken to support Canadians at the time of need, and they know that we're always going to be there, but at the same time, we are responsible fiscal managers at the same time. So this is like I said, you start with being fiscally prudent, being there for Canadian affordability, flagship measure to support young people, allowing Canadians to invest in building stronger communities.
Ceci m'a fait à
I
la,
just have to go.
ceci m'a fait à la conférence de presse. Merci tout le monde.